The scorching sun beat down on the barren planet, painting the endless desert with waves of gold and red. Sand stretched in all directions, broken only by jagged rocks and the occasional outcropping of strange crystalline formations that shimmered faintly in the light. The wind howled, carrying grains that burned like tiny flames against the skin. Few humans had ever come here, and fewer had survived long enough to see its hidden secrets. Yet, Ethan had been trained for situations like this. A scout and explorer for humanity's interstellar missions, he was accustomed to danger, isolation, and strange worlds. But nothing had prepared him for what he would find today. Ethan trudged carefully, his boots sinking slightly into the warm, coarse sand. The scanner on his wrist beeped softly, signaling a possible source of life. Most missions here focused on geology, resource mapping, or reconnaissance, but sometimes the universe offered surprises beyond any expectation. Following the scanner, he climbed a small dune and froze. In the distance he saw it, a tiny glimmer of green amidst the endless shades of orange. It was small but unmistakable, a patch of vegetation, a hidden oasis in the middle of a desert that seemed endless. His heart quickened. Water was rare on this planet, almost a luxury, and any oasis could be a lifeline. He adjusted his pack, carefully lowering his weight to avoid disturbing the fragile ground. Approaching slowly, he noticed something unusual. The water's surface rippled slightly, though there was no breeze here. And then he heard it, a faint, desperate cry, soft and almost human in its tone. Ethan's instincts went on high alert. He scanned the area quickly, looking for danger. There were shadows moving among the crystalline rocks, and something large stirred beyond the sand dunes. But what drew him forward was the sound of the cry. Someone, or something, was in trouble. He crested the dune and saw her. At first he thought she was a human. She was humanoid in shape, slender and elegant, but her skin had a faint, silvery sheen and her hair shimmered like liquid metal. Her eyes were large, luminous, and violet, reflecting pain and exhaustion. She lay half buried in the sand, trembling, dehydrated, and dangerously weak. Around her, strange desert creatures, almost lizard-like but with wings of thin, translucent membranes, circled cautiously, curious but wary. Ethan knew he had to act fast. He didn't know her species, her intentions, or the rules of this world, but the sight of someone suffering stirred something deep within him. He reached for the small canister of purified water strapped to his chest. Kneeling carefully beside her, he whispered, "Hey, I'm here. It's okay, drink this." The alien princess, for that he realized she must be, lifted her head weakly. She hesitated, studying him with suspicion and fear. Ethan's heart pounded. He slowly extended the water canister toward her. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said softly. "You need it." She blinked, her lips trembling. The desert creatures hissed faintly, their wings quivering, but her need outweighed her caution. She took the canister in her delicate hands and drank, small sips at first, then faster, greedily. Ethan held the canister steady, watching carefully, making sure she didn't choke. Her breathing gradually evened and color returned to her skin. When she finally lowered the canister, she looked at him. Her eyes, still luminous but now alert, held something that made Ethan pause. Recognition, gratitude, or something else entirely. Before he could say anything, she spoke, her voice soft but commanding, almost musical. "I'm yours now." Ethan froze, his mind scrambled. He had expected gratitude, a nod, maybe a gesture of trust, but not this. "Yours? What do you mean?" he asked, keeping his voice calm. The princess's lips curled faintly, but she did not explain. Instead, she struggled to rise, leaning against him for support. Her strength was returning, but she was still frail, almost like a child learning to walk again. The desert wind picked up, whistling sharply around them. Ethan glanced at the horizon and saw dark clouds forming, spinning dust and sand into a violent storm. "We need to find shelter," he said firmly. "Can you walk?" She nodded, gripping his arm for support. Together, they moved cautiously toward a rocky overhang he had spotted near the oasis. Every step was a challenge. Her species clearly had evolved for different terrain, but not for the human way of moving. He adjusted his pace, careful not to strain her further. As they walked, Ethan couldn't stop stealing glances at her. She was beautiful, but more than that, there was a sense of power beneath her vulnerability. Her eyes observed everything, him, the desert, even the creatures that followed at a distance. And then there was the weight of her words. "I'm yours now." He didn't understand fully, but he felt the seriousness in her tone. The storm arrived faster than expected. Sand whipped across their faces, biting through clothing and armor. Ethan shielded her with his body, pushing her behind a boulder just as the first wave of dust hit. They crouched together, huddled, waiting for the storm to pass. Hours felt like days. The sun disappeared behind the storm and darkness fell over the desert. Ethan offered her more water from his pack, but she shook her head, having regained some strength. Instead, she simply watched him, her eyes reflecting the faint glow of the oasis moon. Finally, the storm subsided. The desert lay quiet again, but its calm was deceptive. Ethan knew predators would resume their hunt, and survival here was never guaranteed. He looked at the princess and realized something important. She trusted him now. Whether it was instinct, necessity, or something deeper, she had chosen him. "I don't even know your name," he said quietly. "Lyra," she replied simply. One word, but it carried authority, royalty, and fragility all at once. "Lyra," he repeated, testing the sound on his tongue. "I'm Ethan. We need to move, find a safer place before night fully settles." Lyra nodded. She moved with more confidence now, walking without leaning as heavily on him. Yet Ethan could feel her alertness. She was cautious, still calculating every move. He realized that despite her weakened state, she was far from helpless. There was intelligence, skill, and determination in her every motion. The night grew colder, and the desert's true dangers emerged. Nocturnal predators, sensitive to movement, began prowling. Ethan's experience and Lyra's awareness helped them navigate quietly. At one point, a shadow loomed, a massive creature, low to the ground with eyes that glowed faintly red. Ethan froze, signaling Lyra to stay still. The creature sniffed the air, its movements precise. For a tense moment, it seemed it would attack, but Lyra stepped slightly forward, emitting a soft sound. The creature froze, then retreated, leaving them unharmed. Ethan's jaw tightened. You scared it off?" he asked. Lyra gave a faint smile, almost proud, almost playful. "Not me. It knew I was not prey." Her words, simple yet full of meaning, struck him. There was a culture here he had never understood, and yet he was learning it in pieces, one action at a time. He realized survival was more than water, strength, or weapons. It was understanding, trust, and instinct. They continued walking until they found a shallow cave nestled between two crystalline formations. It was not much, but it was shelter. Ethan set down his pack, motioning for Lyra to rest. She lay down, her movements graceful even in exhaustion. Ethan studied her for a long moment, thinking about what had just happened. In saving her, he had unknowingly entered a bond he did not yet understand. And yet he felt a strange comfort in that connection, a purpose that went beyond survival. For Lyra, trust had been given freely, and that trust was not something to be taken lightly. Ethan set up a small portable heater, a shield against the cold night. He offered her another sip of water, and she accepted silently, her eyes never leaving his face. The stars above were unfamiliar, distant, and breathtakingly beautiful. He wondered what her world had been like, what kind of life she had before ending up in this desert. Lyra finally spoke again, her voice softer now, almost hesitant. "You saved me, not many would. Humans are strange creatures, but you are different." Ethan felt warmth at her words. "I just did what anyone would do," he said quietly, though he knew the truth was more complicated. Most people would have run, left her to the desert, but he hadn't. She studied him for a long time, and then simply she said, I belong with you now. You must understand this. Ethan swallowed hard. He wanted to ask questions to challenge the notion, but the sincerity in her eyes stopped him. He nodded slowly, realizing that this was not something to be taken lightly. She had given herself in a way to him. The night deepened. Outside, the desert wind hummed softly around the crystalline rocks, carrying the distant echoes of strange creatures. Inside their small shelter, two beings from different worlds sat together, bound by trust, survival, and the unspoken understanding that everything had changed. For Ethan, this was only the beginning, and for Lyra, this human, this stranger, was no longer just someone who had given her water. He was her protector, her ally, and perhaps, in time, something far more. And in the quiet desert night, beneath alien stars, an unbreakable bond had begun. The sun rose slowly over the desert, painting the sky with shades of gold and crimson. Ethan stirred first, careful not to wake Lyra. He had spent the night thinking, planning their path forward. The desert was unforgiving, and although she had regained strength, she was still vulnerable. Survival required caution, knowledge, and teamwork. Lyra stirred, opening her luminous violet eyes. She looked at Ethan and nodded faintly. "We should move," she said softly, her voice calm and steady. There was a quiet confidence in her now, a shift from the weakness he had seen the day before. He offered her a small container of water, which she drank gratefully. They began their journey toward what Ethan hoped was her city, a place the scanner indicated might exist, hidden among the canyon networks. The desert stretched endlessly, but small landmarks, crystalline spires, jagged ridges, gave them a sense of direction. The wind was calmer than yesterday, but Ethan knew storms could return without warning. Every movement needed to be measured, every step planned. As they walked, Ethan noticed more about Lyra. Her movements were precise, almost predatory, yet elegant. She scanned the desert constantly, eyes sharp, as though she could see danger before it appeared. Her species clearly had abilities humans did not. Ethan had seen many alien worlds, many strange creatures, but Lyra was exceptional. Her intelligence, strength, and instincts were remarkable, and he felt both awe and caution in equal measure. At midday, they paused near a small cluster of rocks to rest. Lyra crouched, touching the sand lightly. Her fingers traced patterns almost as if communicating silently with the desert. Ethan watched, puzzled. She noticed his gaze. "I can sense life," she said simply. "Water creatures, even your heartbeat. It is natural for my people, but you are strange to me." Ethan nodded slowly. "I've learned to read the world differently too. Danger is everywhere here, and sometimes intuition is the best weapon we have." He reached for a small pack of rations, offering some to her. She accepted, taking small bites while her eyes remained watchful. They moved on, and by afternoon they encountered their first major obstacle, a wide canyon, deep and treacherous. The only path was a narrow ledge along the rock face, with jagged cliffs above and below. A single misstep could be fatal. Ethan paused, studying the terrain. "I'll go first," he said, testing each step carefully. Lyra followed, graceful but deliberate. Her balance was perfect, and yet he could sense she was calculating every movement, aware of even the slightest shift in the sand. Halfway across, a low growl echoed from the canyon below. Ethan froze, signaling Lyra to stay still. Two creatures, larger and more aggressive than the ones they had seen before, were prowling beneath them. Their eyes glowed faintly, and their scales reflected the sunlight in patterns that made them hard to focus on. Lyra's eyes narrowed. She stepped forward slightly, emitting a soft hum that seemed almost musical. The creatures paused, tilting their heads, then retreated into the shadows. Ethan's jaw tightened. "How did you do that?" he whispered. She looked at him, expression unreadable. "Respect. They know I am not prey. I can communicate in ways humans cannot, but you earned my respect yesterday. That is enough for now." Ethan exhaled slowly. He was beginning to understand that survival here was not just about strength or technology. It was about trust, understanding, and instinct. And this trust, this bond with Lyra, was growing stronger by the hour. They continued their journey, moving through narrow passes, crossing dry riverbeds and climbing rocky ridges. The sun sank low and the desert's temperature dropped sharply. Ethan had packed thermal blankets, and together they huddled for warmth under a small overhang. The night was silent, save for the distant cries of nocturnal predators. As they rested, Lyra spoke again. "Your people, they are different. You do not fear me, and yet you respect me. Most of my kind would hesitate or run. You are human, and yet you are extraordinary." Ethan shrugged lightly, though a smile tugged at his lips. "I do what I must. That's what humans do. Sometimes we survive by helping others, even if it is dangerous." Lyra studied him for a long moment, as if trying to understand. "Help, trust, loyalty," she murmured. "These are strong words for humans. For my people they are expected but not always given freely." Ethan nodded. "Sometimes actions speak louder than words. We can survive in this desert together because we understand each other, even if our worlds are different." By morning, they approached the outer edges of a canyon network that matched the city coordinates on Ethan's scanner. The structures were unlike anything he had seen before. Massive crystalline towers rose from the canyon floor, their surfaces catching the sunlight and refracting it in colors he could barely describe. Bridges and walkways connected the towers, and faint lights glimmered as if alive. Lyra's eyes widened slightly, a mixture of relief and pride. "We are close," she said quietly. "My people, they will understand soon." As they descended into the canyon, they were confronted by guards, alien soldiers in sleek armor, their expressions unreadable. They formed a line, weapons drawn, as Ethan and Lyra approached. Ethan froze, unsure how to explain himself, but Lyra stepped forward, her presence commanding attention. "These are my companions," she said, her voice carrying authority. "He saved me. He is my protector." The guards hesitated, exchanging glances. One stepped forward, bowing slightly. "Princess Lyra, your life is safe, but his presence is unexpected." Lyra's eyes met Ethan's, a flicker of reassurance in their depths. "He comes with me. He has earned this." The guards finally stepped aside, allowing them to pass. Ethan followed her, his heart pounding. He had expected suspicion, hostility, or rejection, but Lyra's authority had been enough to grant him entry. As they moved through the city, Ethan marveled at the technology and architecture. Crystalline structures glowed from within, powered by an energy he could only assume was beyond human technology. Floating platforms carried citizens through the air, and strange vehicles moved silently across the canyon floor. Lyra led him to a chamber at the heart of the city. It was circular, open to the sky, with a crystal pedestal at its center. The walls were engraved with symbols and images of her people's history. Lyra turned to him. "This is where my people recognize bonds of trust, loyalty, and protection. You have saved me. Tomorrow you will stand here before them, and your actions will be honored." Ethan's stomach tightened. He had not anticipated ceremony, nor had he expected this level of recognition. He glanced at Lyra, who gave him a faint, encouraging smile. "You need not fear. I trust you, and they will see why. But tonight, rest. You have earned it." That night, Ethan slept on a raised platform in a small chamber prepared for him. He couldn't shake the feeling of awe and responsibility. He had saved a princess in a desert far from home, and now he was bound to her by a bond he barely understood. Yet he felt ready. He had trained for survival, for exploration, and now he was part of something larger, something that transcended planets, species, and expectations. Lyra watched him from a nearby balcony, her hair catching the faint light of the twin moons. She reflected on her people, their traditions, and the unexpected twist fate had delivered. This human was different, strong, brave, intelligent, and yet compassionate. He had saved her without hesitation, without thinking of himself. She had declared him hers because he had proven himself in the most fundamental way possible, through action. The next morning they prepared for the ceremony. Citizens gathered, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and respect. Ethan could feel the weight of their gazes, but Lyra's presence beside him was steadying. As they approached the crystal pedestal, Lyra placed her hand lightly on his arm. "We face this together," she whispered. Ethan nodded, understanding more now than ever. This was not just about survival. This was about trust, loyalty, and the bond between two beings from entirely different worlds. And in this moment, he realized that humanity's greatest strength was not technology or weapons, but courage, compassion, and the willingness to act when it mattered most. The crowd watched in silence as Lyra stepped forward. "This human," she said clearly, her voice carrying authority, "saved me when I was weak. He gave me water, protected me, and trusted me. Today he stands as my protector, my ally, and my companion." There was a murmur among the citizens. Some were skeptical, others impressed. But all eyes turned to Ethan, who felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He straightened, meeting the gazes of the crowd with calm confidence. He had survived deserts, storms, and predators. Now he faced a challenge of a different kind, earning the trust of an entire civilization. Lyra's hand brushed against his, a silent gesture of support. And in that simple touch, Ethan felt the bond they had formed strengthen. He had saved her, yes, but she had also changed him. Together, they would face whatever challenges this alien world and the universe threw at them. As the ceremony concluded, Ethan realized that this journey was far from over. The bond he shared with Lyra would be tested in ways he could not yet imagine. But for now, in the heart of an alien city, under skies strange and beautiful, humanity had proven itself once again, not through conquest or power, but through courage, compassion, and the simple act of giving water to someone in need. The day after the ceremony, the city was alive with movement. Citizens bustled along crystalline walkways, and the air shimmered with faint energy currents. Ethan walked beside Lyra, marveling at everything he saw. Though he had been in alien worlds before, nothing compared to this city. Its technology was advanced, yet harmonious with the environment. Towers glowed softly, reflecting light like living gems, and platforms floated silently through the air. Lyra guided him through the city, introducing him to scholars, guards, and advisors. Many studied him with cautious curiosity, whispering to one another. Ethan noticed the subtle ways in which Lyra's people interacted, gestures, tones, even small shifts in posture that conveyed respect, challenge, or alliance. It was a world with rules he could not yet fully understand. They arrived at a council chamber where Lyra's advisors awaited. The room was circular, with high ceilings and walls etched with symbols that pulsed faintly with energy. Lyra turned to Ethan. "These are my people. They have questions and they will test you. Be honest and you will earn their respect." Ethan nodded. He had survived deserts, storms, and hostile creatures, but this was a different test. Here, words mattered and trust had to be earned not by strength alone, but by integrity. The council began. Questions came fast and precise. What were his intentions? Could he protect Lyra? Was he loyal? Ethan answered each without hesitation, speaking honestly about his journey, the desert, and the moment he had given her water. He described the bond that had formed between them, the instinctive decision that had driven him to help. Some advisors remained skeptical, but others nodded in recognition. Lyra's authority carried weight, yet it was clear that Ethan's actions and courage spoke louder than any title. By the end of the meeting, a consensus began to form. Ethan was no longer merely a stranger. He was a protector, a trusted ally, and a symbol of the bond between human and alien. That night, a warning arrived. Scouts reported a hostile alien fleet approaching the planet, their intent clear: capture Princess Lyra and assert control over her people. The council convened immediately, strategizing defense. Ethan was included, not as an observer but as a key advisor. His knowledge of tactics, improvisation, and human ingenuity was valued, even by this advanced civilization. Lyra approached him privately. "This is the moment we must face together," she said, her voice steady, yet carrying the weight of concern. "They will not show mercy, and our people are untested in battle against this enemy. But I trust you." Ethan placed a hand on hers. "And I trust you. We'll face this together just as we survived the desert. We can do this." The next hours were intense. Alien engineers, soldiers, and strategists worked alongside Ethan, implementing defenses that combined human tactics with alien technology. Shields were reinforced, energy barriers calibrated, and aerial patrols prepared. Ethan moved through the city, coordinating teams, advising on weak points, and using the terrain to their advantage. Lyra moved beside him, her presence commanding respect and instilling courage in her people. When the enemy fleet arrived, the skies darkened with massive ships, their hulls glinting menacingly against the twin suns. Ethan and Lyra stood on a high platform overlooking the city. The first shots were fired, energy blasts streaking across the sky. Citizens watched in fear, while soldiers took their positions. Ethan's mind raced. He instructed teams to focus fire on critical points of the enemy ships, using the city's terrain as cover. Lyra coordinated with her people, deploying energy shields, creating distractions, and directing counterattacks. Their bond allowed them to anticipate each other's moves. Where Lyra commanded, Ethan adapted human strategies to exploit weaknesses. Where Ethan improvised, Lyra adjusted alien technology to support him. The battle raged for hours. Explosions lit the sky, debris rained down, and the enemy was relentless. Ethan fought on the ground at key points, using a combination of agility, quick thinking, and small armaments to disable enemy drones and sabotage landing ships. Lyra supported him from above, projecting energy pulses that disrupted enemy formations, saving both him and her soldiers multiple times. At a critical moment, an enemy vessel breached the city's main defenses, aiming directly for Lyra's chamber. Ethan didn't hesitate. He ran, dodging blasts, climbing structures, and intercepting the vessel with a small detachment of soldiers. Using a combination of human ingenuity and alien tech, he managed to disable the vessel, sending it crashing into the canyon below. Lyra watched, awe and admiration in her eyes. You are remarkable," she said softly, even amidst the chaos. Ethan nodded, too focused to respond fully. The battle continued, but their combined efforts turned the tide. The enemy fleet, frustrated by unexpected resistance and precise counterattacks, began to retreat. The city had survived, thanks to the courage, quick thinking, and cooperation between human and alien. When the dust settled, Ethan and Lyra stood together on the highest tower, overlooking their city. The citizens cheered, their energy pulsing in waves of light across the crystalline structures. Soldiers saluted, scholars clapped, and even the skeptical advisors now looked at Ethan with respect. He had not only survived but had saved a civilization alongside the princess. Lyra turned to him, her expression both relieved and proud. "You've done more than anyone could have imagined. Today you protected not just me but my people. Today you became one of us." Ethan looked at her, exhausted but smiling. "We did this together. You trusted me and I trusted you. That's what made the difference." She stepped closer, placing her hand lightly on his arm. "Trust, respect, courage, these are what bind us. And now our bond is stronger than ever. You are no longer a visitor on my world, Ethan. You are my protector, my ally, and my partner." Ethan felt a warmth in his chest, a mixture of pride, relief, and something more he had not expected. This bond, formed from a single act of kindness, giving water to someone in need, had grown into something extraordinary. It was a reminder that courage, compassion, and humanity's unique qualities could transcend worlds and species. In the following days, the city began to rebuild. The citizens, inspired by the events, worked tirelessly to repair damage and strengthen their defenses. Ethan trained with their soldiers, sharing human techniques while learning alien strategies. Lyra remained at his side, guiding, advising, and sometimes simply observing. Their cooperation became a model for the rest of the city, showing that unity between different beings could overcome almost any challenge. Ethan also learned more about Lyra's people, their culture, history, and values. He discovered a civilization that valued intelligence, honor, and loyalty, yet had been rigid in its traditions. His presence and the trust he had earned began to challenge old ideas, opening minds to new possibilities. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the city, Ethan and Lyra walked along a balcony overlooking the canyon. The desert beyond stretched endlessly, but the city below glowed with life and hope. Lyra turned to him, her eyes reflecting the soft light. "You saved me when I was weak. You gave me water, protected me, and never hesitated. Because of that, I chose to trust you, and now I choose to stand with you for everything that comes next." Ethan took her hand, a simple gesture that carried the weight of their journey. "I don't know what the future holds, but I know we'll face it together. We've survived the desert, the storm, and the battle. Nothing can break the bond we've formed." Lyra smiled, a rare and radiant expression that illuminated her features. "Then we face it as one, human and alien together." From that moment on, Ethan's role was clear. He was no longer just an explorer or a visitor. He was a symbol of what humanity could bring to the galaxy: courage, compassion, ingenuity, and the willingness to act when it mattered most. And for Lyra, he was more than a protector. He was a companion, a partner, and someone who had shown her that even across worlds, trust and loyalty could bridge the deepest divides. As days turned into weeks, Ethan integrated into the city's life. He trained, strategized, and learned, all under Lyra's watchful guidance. Their bond became an example of unity, inspiring others to overcome differences and work together. Citizens came to see him not as a human outsider, but as one of their own, a trusted ally who had proven himself through action, courage, and unwavering loyalty. The story of Ethan and Lyra spread quickly across the planet. Tales of the human who had saved the princess, fought alongside her people, and helped defend the city became legend. Children spoke of his bravery, soldiers admired his ingenuity, and leaders recognized that trust and courage were powerful tools, no matter the species. One evening, as Ethan and Lyra stood together watching the twin moons rise over the desert, he reflected on the journey that had brought him here. A simple act, offering water to someone in need, had changed everything. It had forged a bond stronger than any technology or weapon, a bond that had survived deserts, storms, and battle. And in that bond lay the true power of humanity: the courage to act, the compassion to care, and the ability to inspire trust across worlds. Lyra leaned close, her voice soft but firm. "You saved me, Ethan, and now together we will face the universe. Whatever comes next, I am yours as you are mine." Ethan smiled, feeling a sense of completeness he had never known. "And we'll face it together, always." The twin moons shone brightly above, casting their glow over the city and the desert beyond. A new chapter had begun, for Lyra, for Ethan, and for a bond that bridged species, worlds, and hearts. Humanity had proven its worth once more, not through conquest or power, but through courage, compassion, and the simplest act of all, giving water to someone in need. And under the alien stars, two beings from different worlds stood together, ready for whatever the universe would bring. Their journey had only begun, but they knew one truth above all: trust, courage, and loyalty could overcome anything, even the vast, unforgiving void of space.